because I want to talk about prophet and bridge builders and reflecting on queer pastoral influences. I'm a practical theologian, and so I research religious influencers since around 3 years together with my team. So we look at that. And I thought the conference topic you chose on prophets, this somehow fits as well with what I observe when I look at queer pastoral influences. Very important. I'm talking here mainly about the German-speaking Central European context. So I would say it's differently. Concerning the context, I start with, I have a structure of 5 points. First, queer theology. I want to show you 3 examples. Yes, thank you, Jonas. Now it works. I will just tell you, I'm at the second now with the structure. The role of social media in this discourse, reflection on the construction of queer theology through social media, and then a conclusion. And I will just jump to the next slide, Jonas, on queer theology, because I think it's important to get a little bit of knowledge about queer theology to understand what they're doing. Queer theology, you might be familiar or not, is an interdisciplinary movement that draws from various theological, philosophical, and cultural traditions, and it challenges traditional religious beliefs and practices, paving the way for more inclusive and diverse theological discussions. And the roots of queer theology can be traced back to feminist and lesbian and gay theology, as well as post-colonial theologies, which consider political and social justice as essential components of their movements. These movements can also be seen as part of modern individual freedom and human rights concept. And in this reflection, when I talk about queer, I understand it as a systematic approach that demands a critical examination of cultural assumption, normative ideas regarding gender and sexuality. So in theology, queer can therefore serve to deconstruct existing notions and concepts and develop alternative perspective on theology and religion. And understanding queer as a methodological tool in theology is part of the broader development of queer theory, which critically establishes identities, categories, and norms regarding gender and sexuality. Queer theologians have emphasized the significance of post-colonial theory in understanding the interconnection between power, oppression, and marginalization in a global scale. They argue that the experiences of marginalized communities, such as queer individuals, are like those of colonized and oppressed. Therefore, post-colonial theory helps identify and analyze the structure and patterns of oppression and marginalization these communities and individuals experience. So post-colonial theory contributes to analyze the connection between power and oppression, which is also relevant for queer theology. And in queer theology, what you see is there is a constant questioning of the theological mainstream that we see. Very important for the continental European context, queer theology is still not a topic that is not very often taught at universities, and it's as well still a side topic in churches in Switzerland and Germany, but it's coming more and more. So if you can go to the next slide, I will just quickly jump through 3 examples with which I've already worked since nearly 2 years now with the different people. What you see here is called Anders Amen, and it's Ellen and Steffi Radke, and they are a married couple who both are pastors, and they have a YouTube channel with around 27,500 followers, and have already 3.5 million views. They are pastors in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Hanover and have been often now quoted and cited by different journals, radio station, TV, and so on. Their YouTube format, they showcase in the YouTube format episodes from their every life as queer religious couple, as pastors, and as parents of one daughter. So it really varies what they are doing. The second one, if you can go to the next one, please, is Tovia Heyman. No, the next one. Tovia Heyman is a non-binary clergy member who, together with their partner, serves as a pastor in the church communities of Gronau-Niederdorf-Felden in Germany. In addition to their role as pastor, Tovia is also a nurturing parent. And Tovia is on Instagram and shares their life as a non-binary clergy member and nurturing parent. They advocate for human rights and encourages others to embrace their own identities. And in this account, what's very interesting is the development of a non-binary identity from formerly being seen as a male pastor, and you can see it through the whole account. What's interesting is that Tovia has alternative formats, story formats called make-up gequassel, so talking during making your makeup. And they are especially talking about theological, political, and gender issues during that talk while doing the makeup. And it's very interesting because the format and the talk is somehow dissonant, but it brings it all alive. So Tovia Heyman's sense of meaning lies in playing with both traditional and new pastoral and gender roles. They connect Christian theology with the encouragement of individual freedom beyond binary role assignments. Simultaneously, Tovia emphasizes individual, societal, and political responsibility and calls for solidarity with marginalized people. Now, the third example is Tim Müller. His account is called Amen But Sexy. Tim has now a position in Köln as a pastor, as a LGBTQI+ pastor for a community. And here the interesting part is that this community is rather hybrid. So he works on live. Best Insta. So he works online and in Köln, Colonia. And the interesting part is it's really a hybrid community. And that was very interesting with Tim. He was just done with studying theology and did his minister training. And when he started in a church, COVID came and he wasn't sure what to do. He didn't want to stream the normal services. So he started with a format that was called Day 30 of Quarantine and the Pastor Alone in the Church. And he got very experimental with images, videos, and so on. Now, today, Tim offers a blend of digital content and real-world experiences such as queer parties, services, gatherings, and community engagement. Yeah. So I could tell a lot about those accounts, but I'd like to go to the next session, the role of social media in these discourses. What we see in this discourse, it was a long time like queer theology a side topic, but because of social media and as well the YouTube channel of Anders Abend and so on, it kind of comes more into the center, a little bit to the center of the state churches in Germany, but as well Switzerland. And social media in this discourse plays a pivotal and multi-faced role. Through social media, the queer pastoral influencer became a voice and a platform they did not have before that. First and foremost, social media creates a space for them, and a space that gives voice to their experiences, their stories, and they can get in touch with a wider audience. It allows them, and that was for me as a practical theologian very interesting, to transcend the limitation of traditional religious institution and reach individuals who may not have access to inclusive and affirming spaces in their local communities. Moreover, social media enables queer pastoral influencers to challenge and expand traditional theological discourses. I would say they are highly theological productive when we look close, and I like to work qualitative and code the things, so you see how they create theology. Social media also plays a crucial role in advocacy and social activism. These influencers utilize their platforms to raise awareness about the challenge faced by queer individuals with religious context and society at large. So they do address regularly issues of discrimination, marginalization, and the intersectionality of various forms of oppression by sharing personal stories, engaging in political discussions, and promoting social justice in a way of creating a more inclusive society. So they become a visibility as pastors in this segment. However, what is well interesting to see is that they often are attacked by hate speech, harassment, and cyberbullying. They do face backlash, threats, and personal attacks. And it's not that the church always says, "Oh, great, what you do." So in some cases, we've seen that the church became more supportive during the years because they gained more followers. TV was interested. So because social media built a platform for them. So if you can go to the next one. If you look at the similarities, just very clear of those, very short of those, we see that they all work on for queer advocacy with their online presence, and intersectionality is an important topic. If you go to the next slide, the differences is they do have different content focuses. So Tofia has more the question of being a non-binary pastor and a parent of a child with handicap. Anders Arman as a couple, as a lesbian couple with a child. What does this mean? They even had vlogs about how they got the sperms to the hospital and so on to even get the child, what it means as a queer couple to become a child. So one partner still has to adopt a child and so on. And differences, they have different acceptances in church. Not all are accepted the same way. So the next one are the contributions in the next slide. Contribution, there are more, but what we see moment mostly is they do create a space for dialogue and reconciliation. They create visibility and representation, so people do connect as well with question of counseling and so on, and they do empower and support, not just but mainly as well through the visibility. Now to the risk and stumbling blocks. The next slide, please. I already told a little bit about that. They do experience pushback and opposition. They do sometimes are risky how they discuss the Bible. So in a, I think interesting because they do use queer theology as a new perspective to understand the text. So pushback and opposition, they do experience marginalization, within religious institution, and they have to balance authenticity and appropriateness. So what can we say and what not? Because one of the influencers, for example, they're not allowed to make kind of open political stances. So those of you who know Instagram, they sometimes are with the green stars only for the close community to see that. Just to go to the next slide, I'd like to conclude with just 4 things that we see. In conclusion, exploring queer pastoral influences like Anders Amen, Tovia, and Amen Abelsexy reveals their significant contribution to the changing landscape of traditional faith on social media. So it's like a shift we see there. This influence embodied the intersection of queer identity, theology, and pastoral work, challenging and expanding traditional understanding of sexuality and gender, but as well religious and spiritual practices within their religious context. They do have a lot of resistance from conservative religious groups and their churches, and encounter and challenge in navigating controversies and sensitive topics. So by talking to them and observing, so it's like a balancing act they are regularly in. And finally, one of the potential, there are more, but they have a big potential for fostering greater inclusivity, justice, and equality within religious institutions and the wider community. So thank you very much. And thank you, Jonas, for sharing the screen.